The following interview is being conducted with Ms. Concepción Vivar Romero for the Latino Americans 500 Years of History Grant Project at Oklahoma State University. The interview will become part of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the Edmond Lowe Library on the Stillwater campus of Oklahoma State University. The interview is taking place on Tuesday, June 14th, 2016, in the Edmond Lowe Library in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The interviewer is Victor Domingos Baeza, Director of Library Graduate Services. Again, thank you for agreeing to participate in this oral history project, Ms. Vivar Romero. I want to remind you that it may be published as part of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, and that you have granted us permission to publish the transcript and video in part or in its entirety. Okay, so to begin the interview, can you tell me something about your parents?
My parents were born in Veracruz, Orizaba, Veracruz, and they are my role models. They were very hardworking people. My dad was a little bit older when he married my mother. And for me, I guess it was normal to live around older people since my dad was like 45 years old when I was born. But he was the greatest example to me. He was such a hardworking man. We were 9 brothers and sisters. And I admire him so much for raising us. Same as my mother, both of them worked very hard to keep the family together. And like I tell my son and my daughter, we didn't really have a lot. We didn't have that much, but it was such a close family. We were very close, very united, and it was very hard for me to leave my hometown when I decided to come to the United States.
Okay, well, I'll probably ask about that later. But so, what did your father do?
He was self-employed. He will buy like metal scraps from big companies, resell them, and my mom was a housekeeper. Both of them, like I said, all I saw since I remember growing up, it was just like seeing them working all the time.
And you, how many brothers?
All together, we were, my father his first wife passed away. And that's why when him and my mother met, he was a little bit older. His first wife passed away, and they had a daughter together, which my sister was about 17, 18 years old when I was born. And my mother was also a widow, so she already had one son and one daughter. And then when they got married, I have to count, I'm sorry, four daughters and 2 sons that were born, my mom and my dad's marriage. So altogether it was 9 kids. Like I said, I cannot imagine how hard it was for them to be raising 9 children. But thank God, each one of us, we follow their example, and we just work.
And what did you do as a child in Veracruz?
Yes, be a child. Help around. My mom was always out of the home because she was working as a housekeeper. Then she started not a business, but in Mexico you don't really have to have like a licensed business. So she will be baking cakes and Mexican bread, tamales, anything that will help the family to survive. And like I said, I tell Angel and Ryan, even though we were poor, we had a very happy childhood because it was another kind of life for us. But then, as we became teenagers, we realized we needed to pitch in. So we decided to start working. We will go to school, but then on the evenings or late afternoons, we will go and babysit or help my uncle had a bakery. My brothers grew up, working on that bakery, and me and my sisters will go to babysit, do something outside of the house so we can pitch in. As I finished school, then I wanted to be a nurse's aide. I realized it wasn't my field. So I quit that, and then I worked on a pharmacy. And after that, I started working on a shoe store as a sales clerk. And that's when I met my children's father. He was already living here. He was already established here. And I fell in love. When you're 20 years old, you don't really realize how big a step you're going to, I don't know what I was thinking when I was 20 years old. I just kind of followed my heart. We got married. Like I said, he was already established here. I had to follow him because like my mom and my dad said, it's your husband, you're already married, and I had to follow him. But it was very hard for me. Like I said, at that moment, I then realized that I was going to spend so many years without being able to see my parents. It was 7 years later that I went back to see my mom and my dad. My son and my daughter were already 5 and 6 years old. The reason we didn't go to see my parents that soon is because my kids were little, were babies. They might get sick when we go to Mexico, blah, blah. And I accept that, but now I realize it was a time or years that I kind of regret not being able to go back and see my parents. That was whenever we went back I came here to the United States in 1984. I met my husband in 1982. We got married in 1983. I came to the United States in 1984. A year later, my son was born, and the following year, my daughter was born. That was, and then after that, like I said, I spent several years without seeing my family. I went back on 1992, I think. And 3 years later, my mother passed away. And then my father, which it was a surprise because my father being almost 20 years older than my mother, you know, by logic, you think he's older, he's going to die first. Well, it was a shock for me to, when my brother called me to let me know that my mom had cancer, and she only had a month to live. So it was a very hard thing for me because I was already working at that time. I wanted to go and spend time with my mother, but I was just able to be there for a week, come back, and 3 weeks later my mother was gone.
How old was she?
My mother was 67 years old. So it was a very hard, it was very hard to process. For me, she was still young, and she was gone. After that, after my mom died, which it was 1995, 4 years later, my father passed away. So you come here to the United States and you live a different life, a better life maybe, but you give up your family.
So what was the process from, because you said you came to the United States after you got married?
Yes.
So what was the process of getting from Mexico to here in the United States?
Like I said, my husband was already established here. We tried to, it was going to be a long process for me to come. So I had my visa as a tourist. Unfortunately, they reject once I was here in the United States, I don't know what they saw, that they sent me back to Mexico. I was kind of happy that I went back to Mexico, to be honest with you. But then, like I said, my parents said, you have to be with your husband. So unfortunately, I had to come. Somebody had to cross me. Somebody had to, me tuvieron que atravesar la frontera. It was not a good experience, like it is for everybody. It's, you're risking your life. You are exposed to people that you don't know. You don't know those people, and you just pray to God that they will take care of you and take you where they promised to take you. Like I said, it's an experience that everybody that comes to the not everybody, but all the illegal people that comes to the United States goes through, and it's a high risk. And it's sad that they have to come, or we have to come in that way.
So they didn't bring you through the border crossing? Or through the desert?
No, I was fortunate not to go through the desert. It was through Laredo,
Mm-hmm.
I think. To tell you the truth, I don't know where I was. I truly have not that much idea. The place where they had me go through. It was in the middle of the night. it was, I don't know why, but even the electricity went off for quite a few hours because there was some storms or I don't know what was happening. And it was a very scary situation for me. Like I said, on those moments you just like, God, I'm in your hands, and just let me go through this.
So what did they bring you across in?
We had to, I think it was a small boat, kind of like a lancha.
Mm-hmm.
It was another girl and four other guys, four other kids and older men. Like I said, I had no idea who they were. I was just being
So who made the arrangements?
There was this lady that she did all the work, and my sister-in-law.
So, so when you decided to come back, as your parents are saying you were supposed to be with your husband, was it your parents who paid for this and organized it,
Oh,
or
no,
your
no.
husband?
My husband.
So you were hidden inside the boat?
No, we were. It's just like I said. It was just so dark. Well, no, yeah, we were on that little boat across the river, and then it was on the lady's vehicle. It was, I remember it was a huge truck. To be able to fit 7 people there, it was like, I guess it was a big truck. Like I said, to be honest with you, I had no idea where I was. I had no idea the town that we went through. I didn't speak any English at all, so
So, so they picked you up, or someone picked you up in Mexico,
yes,
drove you to the river, and then you got in a boat
a small boat.
and crossed.
Yes,
And then someone was waiting for you on the other side
yes.
with a big vehicle, and then you guys drove. So where did you meet your husband?
In Texas, in Houston.
So the drive from the border to Houston, do you remember very much?
Not a lot. I don't know where I was. I just know that my sister-in-law, well, actually I was waiting for a day or so. I was wondering where are they, or who's gonna come and pick me up. The lady was very kind. They had a beautiful house. The children were very, she had children. They were very, very nice to me. But I remember they looked like a whole day to me waiting to hear something until I finally, or the lady finally told me, I'm going to take you to Houston. And there my sister-in-law was waiting for me.
So do you remember when you finally saw your husband again?
Actually, I spent time with my sister at my sister-in-law's house. And then I flew from Houston to Oklahoma.
And then so you just met him here
At the
At the
airport, yes.
So then what?
Then I was here, it's a new world to you. It's a different world. I was happy to be with my husband, but it was very hard, to be honest with you, very hard to be away from my parents. I spent a lot of time crying, a lot of time crying, because it was the first time I was away from them. And it was not like I'm going back next week or next month or next year.
Were you able to communicate with them at all?
We talk on the phone. We talk on the phone. And for years, I used to write. My father, he was a loving father, and he would write me back. My mom and my sisters, my brothers will write to me, but I have very fond memories of my father, because he will write me like almost every week, every 2 weeks, even if it was just like, take care of, or I love you, or, that was, like I tell Angela and Ryan, my children, writing letters to my parents, it was like a way to, I will describe them, what was life around here, and to me, to receive their letters, it was also remembering my city, my family. So that was the way I really liked to communicate with my parents, with my family.
So after you got here, when was Ryan born?
He was born in 1985.
So a year after you came back the second time, or came the
Yes.
second time. And were you worried at any point, since you were undocumented, of being caught?
Honestly, no, because I didn't go anywhere. My husband was working, I was at home, we'll go do shopping, do what we needed to do, but to be honest with you, I didn't even think about that. I was just homesick. No, I was not afraid to be caught.
So you said your husband was already established here.
Yes.
Here in the Stillwater area?
His parents came to Wisconsin first, on the 60s, maybe, 65, 66. And he was like 10 or 11 years old when he got here, when they got to Wisconsin. And they established themselves there in Wisconsin. His father, I think he was a translator for the braceros. And then he started working at Mercury Marine, like it used to be here. Anyways, they were there, and then he decided, when Mercruiser was established here in Stillwater, then he came to work here to Stillwater, and my husband came also. So when I got here, they had been here almost 15 years, something like that.
And so how much English did you know when you got here?
None whatsoever.
And what was that like?
It was, like I said, it was hard, but also, like I said, I didn't really go out a lot. So to me, I guess it was not a big problem for me, since he was the one speaking. You know, when we went to the store, he will explain to me this and that. But then, and we were living over his parents for a year or so. But then, when Ryan was born, we knew it was time for us to have our own place. And at that time, 1985, you only saw like maybe, well, like I was not familiar with campus life, or, you know, I didn't realize there was Hispanics here in campus. So whenever I saw one or two Hispanic people, I was like, and I will get so happy because I will be like, what, there is somebody I can talk to. But in a way, I guess it was a good thing that we went to live by ourselves, and it was mainly older American people in the neighborhood that we established our home. So I forced myself to learn English, and as Angel and Ryan, sometimes my children, they will kind of laugh because I learned English through Sesame Street and soap operas. But as like, I was already familiar with Sesame Street. Sesame Street is in Mexico. So I already kind of knew the characters, and I will just follow their dialogue. And I was like, well, if it's a soap opera, it's an everyday life. So I got familiar with the characters. But truly, I feel like that was a good thing for me to learn English. And I was blessed to find a friend. She was the same age as I am. She was a college kid, and she, it was funny because we would just communicate through signs, but she was so kind to me, so patient to teach me. And that's how I started, you know, pushing myself to speak English. And it was kind of scary when I was by myself, because I was like, if something happened to my children, how can I get some help? How can I do this? And we didn't have a home phone at that time. So I was, yes, at home with my children, being a housewife, trying to learn English through some of the shows. And it was, like I said, it was hard sometimes to not to feel homesick. Taking care of my children was a beautiful experience. It kept me busy. But whenever I was not busy, I will get homesick. I will still get homesick, which I guess all the people that migrate from another countries, you know, is normal, especially when you don't have anybody to talk with. Just wait for your husband until he gets home. And that was during 4, 5, 6 years.
What's your first memory of Hispanic community in Stillwater?
Okay, I am Catholic. So, like I said, I think the first time I saw Hispanic people, besides my husband's relatives, it was at Walmart. And now we have that joke if you want to find some Hispanic people, go to Walmart. But I was at Walmart, and then I see this lady, and I was like, wow, there is a Mexican lady here with her children. So I asked her where she was from. She was from Mexico, the state of Oaxaca, which is west, down from Veracruz. So then we were so happy to see each other, to talk. And then she told me about the Spanish Mass, which it was every month on St. John's. And then I was like, wow, there is more Hispanic people here. So that's how I got to meet more Spanish people, Spanish-speaking people. But it was like only once a month.
And where were the people from?
Different countries, because most of the people that went to Mass was students. They either single with their families, so some were from Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia. And some nuns that came from Tulsa, because at that time we were able to have the Spanish Mass because it was a priest and a couple of nuns that came to Stillwater every month from the city of Tulsa. So it was nice to be around Hispanic people.
So after you met this woman in Walmart, was that the first time you had gone to church here in the U.S.?
Yes.
So, and at that time, how big was the community, do you think?
Not as big as it is. At that time, like I said, I was not exposed to OSU, so I didn't realize how many people was, the university. I just saw the surrounding areas. It was a small size population, I will say, and we had a Walmart. The Walmart was quite small. And the biggest place to shop was Cimarron Plaza, which is now a rundown place, the rundown area. But that was the main place to go shopping. It was, I guess, kind of like now the Lakeview Plaza. And there was JCPenney, TJ Maxx, and maybe a video store there, and some other stores there, but that was the main place to go. Walmart was where, I think, where Payless or that. Walmart was somewhere in there, but it was a very small Walmart. We had three or four grocery stores. It was three IGA consumers. Safeway, I think, it was one of the grocery stores. And when we went to the store, there wasn't like all these Mexican or Hispanic products. It was just like, it was a big surprise to see there was cilantro and jalapenos and maybe corn tortillas, but that's all you were able to get at the grocery store. That it will be familiar, like, oh, this is not from Mexico, but this is something that I like, that I'm going to to enjoy eating. Not that I don't enjoy eating American food, but it's like something that will make me happier.
So, when can you think of what year it was that the Hispanic community in Stillwater got bigger?
I will say maybe early 2000. After we went to the Spanish Mass every month, but then the priests and the nuns from Tulsa stopped coming because it was kind of like not suitable for them anymore to come all the way here. So then we had another priest that will do the Mass, but then early 2000 we got a priest from Mexico, and somehow we say he drew people. He is a very charismatic priest. That's when when the Hispanic community, somehow you just saw Mexican people everywhere. And not only people from Mexico, from other countries, but that's when I noticed that after 2000, early 2000, the Hispanic community.
Do you remember the priest's name?
David Medina.
How long was he here?
He was here, I am not completely sure, but I will say between 2 and 3 years. Then the bishop from Tulsa, he realized that he was like a mass, how can you say it? Like, he will make people come to church. And he was very, like I said, charismatic, and somehow he will make people get closer. And I guess the bishop needed him in Tulsa, since they have a bigger community. So he went to Tulsa. After he left the community, or at least the people that was going to church when he was here, after he left, it kind of went down, the amount of people that assist. But then it picked up. Now we have, I'm talking about people going to Mass, the Spanish Mass. We have between maybe 60 and 100, 120 people.
So who conducts the Mass now?
Father King. He's American priest, but he was kind enough to keep the Spanish Mass going, and we make him learn Spanish. He keeps learning Spanish, but yes, the Hispanic community has grown, and it's people from different countries, Venezuela, Argentina, Colombia.
So when did you start working in the U.S.?
I was actually, well, my husband wanted me to be a housewife, which it was good because in a way, in that way I was able to raise Angel and Ryan, enjoy them, and I guess they enjoy me being there. He felt like I didn't need to work since he was the provider. But in 1993, 1992, he started having problems with his back. And finally, in 1995, he stopped working because his back started giving him a very hard time. So then he had to fight disability. and there was no income coming. So, for a long time I was like asking him, can I work? I want to work because I was used to work. In Mexico, I was used to make my own money, earn my own money. And when I met this lady, the first Mexican lady, she said she was working at a school. So since then I was like, well, if she's working, I guess I can work too. Anyhow, I guess it was necessity that finally made him realize that somebody needed to bring some income. And I learned the university, that I can go and work at the university. But at that time they didn't have any openings. So I went to a nursing home, since I said, well, I have some, I work in Mexico as a nurse's aide, so maybe I can go. Well, they didn't have any openings at that time. And when you need the money, you cannot be picky. So they said the only job that we have, the only positions we have available is housekeeping. If you want to apply for it. So I started working quite soon. 2 days later, I was hired. But I kept keeping my eye on I wanted to work at the university. Somehow, I don't know why, it was kind of exciting for me to work for the university. So I worked for them. I worked about 3 or 5 months, and then when I learned there was openings, that was on the fall, 1995. There was some openings, so I went to apply, and a day later I was hired.
Now, were you still undocumented at the time?
No. On 1987, I think, at the beginning of 1987, my sister-in-law from Houston, she came to visit, and she told us about, at that time it was the amnestia, and so she said, you need to go with me, and so you can start, your paperwork. You need to be legal here, live, have the opportunity. There is an opportunity for you to have your papers, and I love my sister-in-law a lot because she was the one that pushed me to do this. She has always been very supportive to me. So me and Ryan and Angela, I didn't want to leave my children here. So we went to Houston, and we spent almost 2 months there, because it was like, you got to be there for the process. So thank God I got my residence card, and like 3 or 5 months later, I was blessed. And like I said, thanks to my sister-in-law, that she was pushing me to do this. She wanted me to go back and be able to see my family. So that was in 1987. I got my green card, and then I got my working permit, which, like I said, I was just at home. I was not. You can say I then needed to work, but and I was, like I say, I was happy to be with my children, spend time with my children. It was a very good thing. But I was kind of being used to work. Like, I need to do something.
How old were they?
When I got my green card, they were 1, 2 years old. And then the years passed by. I didn't see the need to become a American citizen. But whenever we went back to Mexico a couple of times, it was kind of not a problem, but then you're not a citizen, you go here, they're citizens, you go there, and it was kind of like a confusing thing. Not a big problem, but anyways, then on 1996, I decided to become a American citizen.
So you took the test.
Yes.
How was that?
It was actually, like they say here, a piece of cake. At that time, I was already working here at the university, so the gentleman and to be honest with you, I was very nervous because 2 or 3 of the people that I knew, they had failed the test. And, I will be reading the book like every day. I was like, well, hopefully I will pass it. But anyhow, I got there and I was like shaking. And then the gentleman was just like, just asking me questions, like where you from and this and that. And then I said, well, and I live here. I live in Stillwater and I'm working at the university. Oh, really? Well, I know people that work there. And then he just asked me the color of the it was a tricky question. He was like, what's something like the color of the White House. It was very simple questions, thank God. I was blessed. So, but I thought he was just having a conversation with me. And then he said, well, you passed the test. I was like, well, thank you. Thank you, God. It was scary, but it was easy to be able to answer. Like I said, it was just 3 questions out of 100 questions and he asked me the 3 easiest questions.
And where did you go to get sworn in?
Oklahoma City.
And what was that like?
It was a happy experience, but then you're also, at that time they asked you to give up your Mexican citizenship, so I was like, but I was happy. I was happy to, to become part of this country. Even though it's not my country, I've been, me ha acogido, they had embraced me, this country with, like I will say with open arms. They have been nice to me, people here, so it was a happy experience. And then next day, I went back to work, and they were waiting with a cake and a big celebration because they were happy that I became a American citizen. So it was a good experience. It was a happy time for me. But unfortunately, a month later, that's when my mom passed away. So it was kind of like a bittersweet experience.
Did you, now that the U.S. doesn't require that you only have one citizenship, have you thought about gaining your Mexican citizenship back?
I thought about it, and um, 3 years later, after I came to the United States, one of my brothers, my youngest brother, decided to come here, not here to Oklahoma. He went to California, Southern California, and he was blessed also that at the same time he became a resident. And now he's also an American citizen, and he has done that. He has the double citizenship. So he encourages me to do the same thing, so we won't have trouble when he, you go as a Mexican, because sometimes they give you a hard time when you enter Mexico. I don't know why, but they give us a hard time. But yes, I had thought about it.
¿Qué dicen?
Como que se enoja un poquito. No sé. Lo hacen difícil a veces. I don't know why, but they make it hard for you.
So what was your first job at Oklahoma State?
I've been working as a food service aide. It was making salads, taking care of the dining room. I was blessed to have a lady manager that she taught me, well, like I said, I grew up with hard-working parents, and that was already me. But this lady was very supportive, and even though she was a very strict manager, she will make you feel, or she will let you know when you were doing a good job. So I felt comfortable working for her. I felt like she pushed me to be a better worker, a responsible, dedicated worker. I've been doing dining services. I've been working dining services for 21 years.
It's a long time.
A long time. It was, like I said, it was the circumstances that made me, or that I was allowed to work. It was temporary, until our financial situation got better. But in a way, I'm glad. I'm glad I was able to start working, so I don't have to depend on somebody else, and I can support myself if I have to.
So how old are your children now?
I don't know if they want me to say that. But my son is 30 and my daughter is 29. And they are my pride, my joy.
And we'll talk about them later. Where have you worked on campus?
Scott Parker Wentz Scott Parker Wentz cafeteria. That's when I started working. I worked there for 12 years, 12, 14 years. Then, or more. Sorry, I worked there maybe 15 years. Then I injured my shoulder on a car accident, and then they asked me if I wanted to move to another position where I will not be lifting heavy equipment or whatever I needed to lift that it was heavy. So I accept that position, and I'm working right now at the Henry Belmont Center, Research Center. There is a small cafe over there. It's called Needles. And I run that small cafe. I've been doing that for 4 years, 5 years.
So have you been there from the very beginning of when it's opened?
No. Some other lady was the first employee when they opened that building. Because as far as I know, Henry Belmont it's a new building. It was, I think, for a year or so that this lady worked there, and then she moved somewhere else, and I was offered that position.
So when you first started in the 90s?
1995.
What do you remember, or can you remember seeing a lot of Hispanic employees, or did you see a lot of Hispanic employees?
I did. Actually, the lady that told me about the job, about the position, was a Mexican lady. Her husband was a professor here, and she worked there, food service. She was the one that told me about the position being open. And then there was another 2 ladies from Mexico. Mainly it was students, how can I say it? The husband will be going to school here, and the wives were able to get a job in the university.
And was there, not a club, but did the Hispanic employees hang out together?
Yes. We will try to mingle with the rest of the employees. Like I said, I was blessed to have this manager that she was very open to any diversity. She didn't care if we were speaking Spanish. She would just kind of pat our shoulders, and she would be like, "You Spanish speaking ladies." But she was not being mean. She was, it was comfortable to be around this lady. Some people will not be too happy about us speaking Spanish. But for us, and it's not, some people might think, most of the American people might think that we're gossiping about, them. But you feel comfortable, you feel happy when you're talking to let's say she's from Mexico. My hometown is close to her hometown, and it's like, even with this lady from Honduras, I was kind of introducing, I would go to Walmart, like I said, the place to meet Hispanic or is Walmart. So I went, once I started working there, then I met another lady. So, well, I'm looking for a job, and I will introduce them to to my manager, and then they will be hired. And then I met this lady from Honduras. Her husband was, they just came from Miami, and the husband was gonna start working at Mercury. And then he asked me, do you speak Spanish? I said yes. And he's like, well, my wife is looking for a job. Do you know of any positions? I said, I think so. Let me talk to the manager. So I will talk to the manager, and then this lady from Honduras was hired, and then another Mexican lady. So I think I was a recruiter. I brought like 5 Mexican ladies, 5 ladies from Hispanic background. But like I said, when you meet somebody that speaks your language, it doesn't matter if they're from Venezuela, Colombia, but it's like you feel that connection, and you feel good talking to them, remembering, even like you remember this song, you remember this, and sometimes I'm like, I wish I met them when my children were very young, because then I will, I raised my kids by myself. I haven't, you don't have experience as a parent. But then now that I'm older and I see all these young mothers, exchanging ideas and all of that, I didn't have that. But still, it feels good to find somebody that speaks your language, that knows, the traditions and all these things that brings you some kind of happiness, even for a few minutes.
So you mentioned that not everybody was happy when you guys were speaking Spanish to each other. Did you have situations where people were mean or rude?
Yes. Like I said, people has been nice to me, but there is quite a few people that they don't appreciate. They will say that, I don't appreciate you speaking Spanish.
These are other employees, managers?
Another employees. And one lady was very direct. Me and this other Honduran lady, we were talking. It was about 5 a.m. I don't think it was the best time of the day for her to be listening to a foreign language. We were, and like I said, we're not gossiping. We're just having a good time, talking about anything. And then this lady comes, and she's like, and she was quite upset. And she was like, I don't appreciate you speaking Spanish at all. And English is the official language here in Oklahoma. If you want to speak Spanish, you do it at home. For a second, I was like, but then I say, with all due respect, you don't have any right to forbid me from speaking my native language. I am not offending you. And she turns around and she said, well, you're laughing. And she said this, and I'm assuming you're laughing at me, or you're making fun out of me. I'm like, we have more important things to talk about. I'm sorry. But you don't have, like I said, you don't have any right to forbid me from speaking my language. I don't think anybody has the right to forbid me. Then she got quite upset, and she just kept walking. It was sad to you know, to have somebody talk to you in that way. But at the same time, I was like, I'm not gonna quit Spanish, talking Spanish, talking to my friends or having a conversation with with my coworkers, because that makes me comfortable. I know it might make her feel uncomfortable, but as long as I know that I'm not saying any bad things about them, I don't think I should stop.
Do you remember what year this was?
That was maybe early 2000.
Is that employee still around?
No. And actually, she's a very charming lady. I think that morning she was not a happy person. But she loves me. She loves Angela. But that day she was like, I don't know what happened that morning.
Was she a pleasant person before that conversation?
Yes, she was. And she's still a pleasant person. She's not working there anymore, but we see each other Walmart, somewhere else, and she's very loving. I don't know what happened that day.
So, talking about speaking Spanish and then your children, Ryan and Angela, did you speak Spanish to them when they were growing up?
Yes. There was no English at home, of course, because I didn't know any English. And my husband, we agreed to, yes, teach them Spanish. So the way they learn English, it was, watching TV shows and watching movies. At that time, I was not driving. There was no need for me to drive. So we were always at home. And it was just me singing and in Spanish, playing with them, everything in Spanish. That's for the first 3 or 4 years. Since I was not driving, they were not exposed to, and I don't know if exposed is the right word, but my husband working, coming home kind of late, and me, yes, at home. They didn't have the opportunity to be around more children. So I don't know if it was a shock for them not a shock, but kind of hard for them whenever they started school, because they were more used to Spanish than English. But they knew English. They expressed themselves in English. But they were not, they were like on this small bubble where there was Spanish all the time.
So how well did they do in school when they first started going?
Maybe, like I say, it was a little hard for them. But I think it was harder for them to be away from me because we were so used to just be at home. I cried all day long when my son left for kindergarten, but I had Angela with me, so we were, and then when Angela left for school also, I just felt like, kind of naked because I didn't have my kids with me. But I am glad that they grew up, the first language that they spoke, it was Spanish, because now it has I think it has given them the opportunity to get better jobs and to know, even though they live in this, they were born in this country, but they care about their Hispanic heritage. They care a lot, and they feel pride, to be from Hispanic backgrounds.
Have you taken them back to Veracruz?
Yes, the first time we went back, it was, like I said, not, my parents were not, they didn't have the la dicha de cargarlos cuando eran bebés, to hold them when they were babies. It was after they were 5 and 6 years old. That was the first time we took them to Mexico. Maybe a second time, and then unfortunately the third time that we went back to Mexico, that's after my mother passed away. But they love Mexico. Angela, she enjoys going back to Mexico and experience the culture, all the things that she knows. She's always pushing me to go back to Mexico to visit to spend time with my family.
So that she can go along?
Yes.
And so what are your children doing now?
Angela she coordinates this program, which is called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing right, because I get confused with rice and rice. This program, Retention Initiative for Students Excellence, is basically, for what I understand, for low-income first-generation students. She is in charge of that program, and she gives herself to this job. She cares so much for her students. It's a diverse group, and I'm not saying that she focuses more on the Hispanic kids, but she cares so much for all of these kids. She relates to them because I didn't mention my son and my daughter. They are the first ones to go to college on my family, on my family's side, and I'm guessing on my husband's side also. So for Angela, at least, I know it is a must for her to push students to go to college, to be something. That's what she does. She's been running that program, I believe, for 4 years. Before that, she worked for another program related to students, high school. She worked for a high school. It was hard for her to get to college. She had to look for scholarships. She had to work hard to be able to start college. We then had a very, like I mentioned before, having a one income. It was hard for us to survive, and that's why I feel so proud, very proud of Angela and Ryan accomplishing, going to school and being professionals now.
So they both went to Oklahoma State?
Ryan started on NOC in Tankawa. Then he wanted, well, sometimes we as parents, we think that we know what's good for our kids. He wanted to be a personal trainer. And at that time, 10 years ago, personal training was not like, unfortunately, me and his father were like, what kind of profession is that? What are you going to do with that kind of title? So we kind of pushed him to go different path, like business. I guess he did it to please us. So he started business. I think he went like for 2 years, but then it was not what he wanted. Then he was not too happy following that career. He stopped going to school for a while, but then he finally, like, maybe it was like 2009, 2008, that he was like, I want to go back to school and I want to do personal training because that's what I want to do. At that time, he was working on a casino, and he asked for help from his father, and so he went back to school. He was working full time, went to Heritage College, and that's where he got his degree. And he struggled. He was hired on a facility. It was I cannot remember if it was a gym or what was it. But then he was like, I want to own my own business. He was blessed, very blessed, to find somebody that will help him. And he opened his business early 2010. And he's been blessed to keep his business open for almost 6 years. He has a studio. He runs that business by himself. And it's hard for him to run a business with nobody's help, but yes, by himself. So it's a big accomplishment for him. It's a dream that he had for years, and God bless him to be able to go to school and he's doing right now what he feels is right for him. And Angela, she's the two of them are my pride because they had pushed themselves so much to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, even though we had a hard time. We had a very hard time when they were growing up, financially, emotionally. It was not it was not a very pleasant life for some years, for a few years, but I think that unfortunately sometimes when you have a rough life, that's what pushes you to do better, to do your best so you can kind of move forward and have a better life.
So, speaking of life, what for you is the most important or meaningful experience of your life?
My children.
Anything in particular with your children?
Yes, by seeing where they are right now. Yes, by watching them watching and knowing how much they had accomplished. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
And what about yourself? What's something that you've accomplished that you are the most proud of?
For myself, that's a good question. My priest has asked me that several times. I don't know. I don't really think about myself that much.
Do you have something that you wish to accomplish in the near future or in the future?
I know I need to have a goal. To be honest with you, I don't think about myself that much. I don't know if that's good or not.
Is there something you would like to say, probably in Spanish, to encourage someone who might be considering coming to the United States or immigrating, someone who has recently immigrated? Some advice that you would give them from your own life?
I know, yo sé que en México la vida es dura. Para sobrevivir, es muy duro sobrevivir en México. Pero también yo sé que se piensa en la familia, dejar su país de uno para mejorar la familia, pero también lo que deja uno atrás. Viene uno a una vida más cómoda, a ganar más aquí en los Estados Unidos, pero dejamos parte de nuestra vida en nuestro país. Es de la manera en que yo me siento. No sé, no sé si eso es un buen comentario o no, pero soy feliz aquí porque tengo a mis hijos, son mi vida, pero parte de mi vida está en México todavía,
Todo el tiempo.
todo el tiempo.
Is there anything that you would like to say that I didn't ask you about?
You live here, you might say more comfortable, you have a better life, but also to have that comfortable life, you have to work hard. You know, back in Mexico and maybe in other countries, they might say the way they think and the way I know, well, I'm gonna be earning, you know, dollars, and I'm gonna have a better life. Yes, you're going to have a better way of living here, but to be able to have that, you have to work hard. You have to work hard to have what you have. I experienced that myself, and that's the way I see it. If you're going to have that comfortable life that you want to have, just, you know, like the American people, the people that lives here, you have to work hard, and just like my parents showed me, and I always follow my parents' example. By working honestly, by not cheating, by not, you accomplish what you want to accomplish. But it's hard when, you know, when you're not looking for the easy way to have things, when you know that there is a honest, a decent way to make a living. That's the way I see it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Really good.